There are very few moments behind the wheel that demand more from you than deciding when to turn across oncoming traffic. I mean, it's this incredibly high-stakes scenario where you have seconds, literally just seconds to judge speed, gauge distance, and then commit. And if you get it wrong, the consequences are serious.
Okay, so let's unpack this a little bit. Even if you think you're a great driver, the research we looked at is just, well, it's crystal clear. This single high-pressure moment is where so many of the most serious intersection accidents happen. We're not talking about little fender benders here. We're talking about high-speed failure to yield collisions.
It's really a crucible for human perception, isn't it? And our mission in this deep dive is to get past that feeling of just, hoping for the best, hoping the other driver slows down. We want to sharpen 3 key skills: how to scan for those really subtle danger cues, how to interpret the closing speed of that traffic, and then how to respond decisively. We're essentially trying to recalibrate your internal stopwatch for safety. To sharpen that perception, I guess we first need to understand the playing field. Intersections are complicated, but when oncoming traffic gets involved, the danger zones become really specific.
Exactly. We can actually categorize these collision scenarios. The one everyone thinks of, and it is the highest risk, is the straight versus turning collision. That's a vehicle coming straight, probably at speed, hitting you while you're trying to turn across its path. That is the most common and definitely the most severe type of impact.
And the research also points to other, maybe less common, but just as dangerous setups, like a car just traveling straight that somehow crosses the center line and hits another car going straight in the other direction. It's just a momentary lapse of control that puts them on the complete wrong side of the road.
And that brings us to scenarios where 2 oncoming vehicles are both turning. The geometry here can be surprisingly tricky. You have what's called a cross-direction collision. So 2 cars coming toward each other both try to make a left turn, and their paths cross in the middle. Usually happens because one of them cuts the corner too tight.
Wait, so even if you're both turning, you can still collide? That feels a bit counterintuitive, especially the same direction collision.
It does, but it absolutely happens. Imagine 2 cars coming at each other, and they both want to turn right onto the same cross street. Or maybe they're both trying to navigate a big multi-lane left turn. If one of them swings too wide or doesn't stay in their lane, they can easily clip each other. It just reminds you that an intersection isn't a single point, It's a dynamic shared space.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me. Once we understand the geometry, how do you spot a vehicle that's not just coming toward you, but is an actual threat? We've put together a sort of practical checklist to build a threat profile on the fly.
Yeah, you need to analyze 3 things: movement, position, and the driver's behavior. Let's start with movement, specifically speed. We're looking for 2 big red flags. The obvious one is just high speed. The car's moving way too fast to stop if it needs to.
Right. But the more subtle one, the one I think people miss, is erratic speed changes. That sudden acceleration, then hard braking, for no obvious reason. What does that tell you?
It tells you that the driver is not consistently engaged. Not at all. Erratic speed is a huge sign of distraction. They look up, realize they're going too fast, slam on the brakes, then they get distracted again and speed up. It means their closing rate on you is completely unpredictable, which is the exact opposite of what you want.
Okay, so if speed gives us clues, then the car's position tells us about their intent, or maybe their lack of intent. We have to watch for signals, of course.
Sure.
The lack of a turn signal before a sudden turn is just pure unpredictability.
And just as important is their lane position. Is the vehicle drifting? That slow, constant wander from one side of the lane to the other. That's a massive indicator of distraction or even impairment. And you also have to check if they're in the wrong lane for what they seem to be doing, like a car in a straight-only lane that suddenly starts to drift left.
And then if we could zoom in on the driver themselves, there are physical cues to watch for. Signs of erratic or aggressive driving, sudden lane changes, tailgating, and the classic signs of distracted driving, like the head constantly looking down into their lap.
And we have to look at how they interact with traffic signals. You need to be really wary of drivers who are ignoring signals, just blowing through stop signs, or showing a lot of hesitation. Those multiple stops and starts at an intersection. That doesn't signal caution to me. It signals confusion. And a confused driver is a dangerous driver.
And we can't forget the environment in all this. If you see those threat cues, the high speed, the drifting, you have to layer on the context of the road itself. Wet or icy roads mean longer stopping distances, so erratic driving on a wet road. That threat level just skyrocketed.
And you have to account for obstructions. Anything that blocks your view, a big truck, bushes, fog, means you have to be that much more cautious. You have to assume that what you can't see is a danger.
So Turning all of this rapid-fire observation into action is what saves lives. The sources we read pointed to 4 really practical tips. First, just reduce your speed as you approach any major intersection. Always. Second, cover the brake. Get your foot off the gas and just have it hovering over the brake pedal. That simple move shaves critical milliseconds off your reaction time.
Right. Third, maintain a safe buffer. Don't crowd the car in front of you or the stop line. Give yourself space to react. And finally, you have to be ready for the worst-case scenario. Be prepared to take evasive action. That might be braking hard, it might be steering away. And if you see imminent danger and the other driver seems totally oblivious, use your horn. Don't hesitate.
We've built this threat profile, but why do so many drivers miss these cues in the first place? Why do they fail that instant judgment test?
Well, what's so fascinating here is that while we talk about speeding and all that, most of these accidents really boil down to a failure of perception. The driver simply thought they had more time.
So it's not always just being reckless, it's a cognitive failure.
Yeah. Precisely. Let's start with the obvious one, driver distraction. Using a phone, messing with the radio, that leads to inattentiveness, so they just don't process how fast that other car is approaching.
And then there's the simple failure to yield. But what you're saying is that's not just ignoring the rules. It often comes from misjudging the speed and distance of the oncoming car.
This is the critical point. Humans are actually pretty bad at judging the velocity of approaching objects, especially bigger things like cars. We tend to underestimate the speed of vehicles going over, say, 40 miles per hour. So a car that's actually coming at you at 60, your brain might register it as 45. Which gives you this false sense of security, a false window of opportunity. It's all tied to this idea of a time-to-collision calculation in our brains. If you misjudge the speed, you completely miscalculate the gap.
Wow, that is a genuine aha moment. So it's not just ignoring the gap, it's that your brain physically miscalculates the gap.
Absolutely. The car you think is 10 seconds away. It might only be 6 seconds away. And 6 seconds is often not enough time to start your turn, clear the lane, and get up to speed safely.
And then you layer on top of that the purely behavioral stuff, like speeding or driving too fast for the conditions. And of course, impaired driving, whether it's alcohol or drugs or just being tired. Fatigue is such an underestimated factor. It just slows your reaction time down to a crawl.
And we also see failures in just the basic mechanics of turning. Improper turns, making a left turn on a yellow light when you shouldn't, or trying to rush a right on red without properly checking. All of these errors force the oncoming driver to react instantly, and sometimes that's just not possible.
And moving away from the driver, the environment itself can be a problem. Poor visibility is a huge one. Fog, heavy rain, the glare from headlights at night, or physical obstructions like buildings right on the corner.
And we can't forget the road design itself. Sometimes inadequate signage or road design, weirdly angled intersections can genuinely confuse drivers about who has the right of way.
So what does this all mean for your daily drive? We're going to look at 3 pillars of risk reduction: your habits, your car, and the environment.
The foundation is just safe driving practices. You have to always yield appropriately, never assume you can just sneak through a gap, and you need to scan the intersection constantly, left, right, ahead, then back again, before and during the turn. And a huge defensive move. If traffic is backed up on the far side, just don't enter the intersection. Getting stuck in the middle is a nightmare scenario.
And your vehicle is your safety toolkit. I mean, we're talking about basic but vital vehicle maintenance. Brakes that work perfectly, steering that's responsive, and keeping your windows and lights clean. A dirty windshield at dusk can make it impossible to judge distance accurately.
And finally, we have to adopt robust defensive driving habits. That means you are actively anticipating what other drivers might do, you assume they're going to make a mistake, and you consciously avoid aggressive behavior yourself, which just escalates the risk for everybody on the road.
And while we can't redesign the streets ourselves, it is worth pointing out what good infrastructure looks like. The sources really promote things like roundabouts, which slow everyone down and pretty much eliminate those dangerous T-bone collisions. Also, dedicated turn lanes and better lighting, they make a huge difference.
Speaking of high-risk moments, let's just focus on one specific scenario. When an oncoming vehicle is turning left in front of you, this is a moment where you almost always have the right of way, but you absolutely have to assume that the other driver is about to misjudge everything and pull out in front of you.
So it's instant trust management.
Yeah.
You have the right of way, but you have to be ready to give it up in a split second for your own safety. What's the protocol there?
The second you see that oncoming car start to creep forward for its turn, you slow down immediately and you cover the brake. Don't just maintain your speed because the light is green.
Okay, next, you observe their movements. Try to make eye contact if you can. It's not a guarantee, but it helps. You want to maintain a safe distance, and this is critical. Do not overtake them on the right. Don't try to swerve around them.
That's such a key point. Stay predictable. If it looks dangerous, be prepared to stop completely. Just stop and let them go. Your progress isn't worth the risk. And if they are clearly not stopping, use your horn. The main insight here is you have to anticipate mistakes. Your safety depends on you being prepared for the other driver to fail their judgment test.
This whole deep dive, it really boils down to managing pressure and perception, and just assuming that someone, somewhere, is about to fail to yield.
Yeah, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it's all about how you respond to that psychological pressure. The data consistently shows that drivers really struggle with timing. They either hesitate too long and miss a perfectly safe gap, or they go too early because their brain just didn't calculate that closing speed correctly.
Exactly. So we've gone way beyond just check your mirrors.
Yeah.
We've covered everything from seeing the subtle red flag of erratic speed to the simple defensive move of covering your brake, staying focused, slowing down early, and just never, ever assuming another driver is going to yield to you. Those are your best defenses. So we know that misjudging speed and distance is a huge cause of these accidents because our brains struggle with that time to collision calculation. So here's the thought for you. The next time you're waiting to turn and you see a car approaching at high speed, don't just look at it. Actively listen to it and try to quantify that gap. Don't just feel it out. Deliberately count in your head 1,000, 1,000. How many seconds do you actually perceive before they reach you? And if you calculate 5 seconds, what does that feel like? Sharpening that internal clock, that's where true safety really begins.
Please like, subscribe, and get notified.